it tilted so far down?
What?
GoPro.
That's how wide it is.
Got it. But no free feet pics, right?
Right. Excuse me, puppy.
No, father. 我跟他最接近的时候，我们之间的距离只有0.01公分。我对他一无所知。6个钟头之后
All the leaves are brown. All the leaves are brown. And the sky is gray.
All right, so we just finished Chungking Express, not Chungking or Chungking, Chungking Express. And I'm out of the sling. Not out of the woods, but out of the sling on my broken shoulder. But I loved this one. What did you think?
I did too. It was I had some issues with it, but it was really kind of just lighthearted.
We're good. I'm just checking. So this is the one that I knew of him before the box set. This is the only movie of his I knew. And quote me if I'm wrong, but I think it's his kind of most popular movie. And I can see why, because comparing this to As Tears Go By, there's a lot more similarity in that director style that I really enjoyed from that movie. But it's like done better here.
Yeah, it was like a much cleaner version. I was thinking that watching it as well.
There's he kind of goes back to having a lot of neon accents. We kind of talked about that during the movie when it comes to the visuals, filming, and really there's basically only a couple places he films this movie at, but he shoots it in such a way that you don't get tired of these same locations, and they're constantly interesting to look at. Like they're really kind of like the way he moves cameras, does other special things, really kind of helps bring life into these basically like 4 environments through the whole movie. So that was really cool.
Yeah, my biggest issue is it focuses on 2, can't really say couples because technically they're not dating, but 2 sets of people. And I really feel like the one set was completely unnecessary.
This is kind of 2 movies in one that just happen around the same like bodega kind of.
I wouldn't even say 2 movies in one because the first one was so short and there was absolutely nothing to it.
I don't know. I felt like it was kind of down the middle a little bit.
Maybe it was, but it felt like it was short for me. It felt like there was nothing to it and that it could have been left out completely.
So,
and we could have just spent more time developing the second set of people.
Yeah, so the story is basically a guy who's lonely kind of spends this night with this really, I guess, criminal woman because she's in this whole like drug trafficking ring and everything, and spoilers. And then we cut to the next half of the movie where this guy just meets this girl who's kind of weird, working at the same, like, I don't know if you call it bodega. I don't know if that's the right word, but this like street counter, like deli thing.
Technically a pizzeria. That's what the sign says.
Okay, so like what's a bodega then? Like one of those little
bodega
stores?
Is like a little shop.
Gotcha.
Like what we would call a carry out.
See, okay. So there's kind of, and it's a hard split right in the middle, like, or if it's not in the middle, but it felt like to me it was in the middle. But there's just kind of a hard split, and then you have this first half of this movie that kind of has in a way a little bit of a far-fetched, more energetic like feeling to it, and then it kind of just cuts into a romance movie.
Yeah, the first one kind of felt like it was going to be, and I say this in a good way, it felt like it was kind of going to be like a cheesy dirty cop
drama, yeah,
dirty cop drama. And then the second one was almost whiplash because it was like a romance comedy kind of feel. Which, don't get me wrong, I liked both aspects, but the first one felt really underdeveloped.
I liked the tonal whiplash like that a lot. I thought it was a really interesting way to kind of carry, because there's not a lot going on in this movie between both aspects of the story. So to carry to feature length,
my issue wasn't the difference between the two. It's that the second one felt like it got so much more development than the first one got.
Gotcha.
Like we get an ending with the second one. We don't. The first set of people There's no ending. It's literally just like one meeting
Encounter,
and that's it.
Yeah, the first one, it seems like they were trying to set up a lot of stuff going on in the first movie. Because, I mean, the first movie.
It
the
does
first
feel
section,
like 2 movies.
Yeah, the first section, because of the whole, like, criminal aspect that's going on, everything like that. And then we just hard cut into a romance movie for the rest of the movie. And there's a lot going on in the first half that you don't get that payoff for. And in the second half, it feels more of a complete cycle. And I could completely understand where you would feel that first half would be underdeveloped because it doesn't have that hanging. It just has a lot of setup and there's no payoff. I don't know. I just kind of like that. You just kind of get 2 different things just mushed together. And it just worked for me as like entertainment.
I liked both stories. I liked both stories a lot. I really wish there was more of the second one because it was like a really
Second one or the first one?
Oh, I'm sorry, the first
You're
one
good.
because it was like a really exciting setup. There was a lot happening, and I personally could go for like a cheesy dirty cop movie.
Yeah, I agree with you on that because like when the movie started and we're setting up all this stuff, I was really quickly invested in what was going on, thinking about like how is this going to play out, watching everything like that. But it's weird because like once the movie shifts into that second half, that second movie,
It never goes back.
it never goes back, not even once. But once it shifts into that second movie, I found myself just as enthralled or like as caught up into that story as I did the first one, to the point to where like when the film, I remember you bringing up, it's like, are we just not going back to that guy? And I was kind of like, oh shit, I forgot all about that.
Well, that's the thing. I loved both stories. I really was sold on whatever the underground drug ring was that first couple had set up, and I really wanted to see more of that.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in that first half that was pretty interesting to say the least. You could have easily have just made
Split
that
them
the whole
2
movie.
movies.
Yeah, you could have just made that movie, and it probably would have just been as good as this as a whole.
Which I kind of wish they would have done, because I think both stories were really interesting, and both stories could have carried a full movie.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
kind of
not
agree.
mad. I'm not mad that they were combined.
I don't know much about the back history of this movie, so I'm kind of curious to why he chose to do it this way. I would be interested in that because it really just does feel like 2 different movies, and maybe I missed something, but I don't feel like there's any connection between the 2 other than that they're both police officers in the same police department. They both go to that same pizzeria. And the whole beginning of the movie where he's like talking about the random people you meet in life. Is that what the message is?
I think that's what the connection is supposed to be, is just them struggling to make a connection.
You think?
Yeah, I think the connection is just that they're 2
So,
single
is
men
that-
struggling to make connections.
Is that the point then for having 2 parts of a movie that has no connection, is to struggle to find that connection?
I think so.
God, that's like some crazy bullshit.
Oh yeah, you went real deep with it. That's how I took it. Maybe I'm pulling shit out of my ass.
No, I kind of like that. I'm kind of gonna have to agree with that. I kind of like that comparison if that's where we're gonna take that line to. Just checking this thing. I hate my field recorder. He does something that I love on a visual aspect is he will take a film, he'll take the film, slow it into slow motion to get this ultra choppy effect. And the way you do that is you shoot in 24 frames. That's what most movies are shot in. So when you get that super slow motion, which I'm sure you know of this, when you get that super slow motion, you shoot in a much higher frame rate. So when you convert it to that 24 frames a second, you have that nice smooth slow motion, something like Zack Snyder or somebody like that does. But there's certain directors who decide to shoot in 24 frames a second, then still slow it down. So it has this ultra choppy jarring motion. And one of my favorite examples of this is at the end of The Devil's Rejects.
Oh, I know what scene you're talking.
I can't change.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of the song, but all I could think of was California Dreaming.
Right. I love, California Dreaming's used 1,000. If you like that song, you'll like this movie because it is in here 1,000 times.
It is it's the soundtrack.
It's California
on repeat,
Dreaming.
1 through 12, California Dreaming.
But he uses this effect a bunch in this movie, and he used it quite a bit as Tears Go By. I don't remember if he used it much in Days of Being Wild. Do you remember?
I don't remember seeing it in Days of Being
think
Wild, but that almost felt like a completely different
movie.
well, I mean, it was a different movie. It felt like a completely different vision.
Yeah. But he uses that in a lot of his movies, and I think it may have shown up in Days of Being Wild, but if it was, it's very minuscule. But I just really love that effect because he uses it well. He uses it as like a frantic energy in these kind of like quick pace, like jarring moments, and it just works so well for the tone.
I noticed he also uses it kind of as a representation of emotional crashing.
That too, yeah. He kind of uses it to like balance the character's, I guess, like headspace a little bit too. But he uses something different in this movie too that I found to be absolutely, we both said it was, both times he used it in the movie, we both were like, that is really cool. And it's when he has like the main characters and the main focus of the scene moving in this, he's kind of using that choppy effect, but then he has the main characters move in this kind of slow motion while everything around it's like super fast. And it makes for some really cool looking visually appealing scenes. I loved it.
It was, sorry, I'm trying to get my brain to finish a sentence. It really helped solidify those moments as like turning points for the story.
Absolutely.
Every time he used that effect, you could just kind of feel like, oh, a little bit emotional damage.
He used it really sparingly for that aspect of that kind of emotion, and it was very impactful when he did. And I think, I'm not sure, I'd have to see the footage, but I think in Days of Being Wild, I mentioned that it didn't feel like the same director, which is kind of a bullshit statement because we'd only been 2 movies in his so far. But after seeing this, we're only 3 movies in, so it could still change. But I feel like that kind of solidified that statement about being Days of Being Wild.
It was the black sheep of the family.
So far, because this movie, visually, tonally, stylistically, feels much more akin to As Tears Go By.
And that was this movie had a lot, it only had one actor that was shared among another movie, whereas that we know of. That we noticed. The Days of Being Wild had 3?
Had several, and they were like kind of main players too.
Yeah, and so even without the shared actors, it still felt more like
As Tears Go By.
As Tears Goes By, thank you.
Yeah, As Tears Go By is kind of a little bit more goofy in a way. Or I guess more it's more actiony in a way. I don't know, it's kind of goofy. There's some goofy moments, but where this is kind of much more of like this like human story, I guess.
I think I might be getting movies confused because I don't remember. What was the first one?
As Tears Go By was the one where it's like the gangster like setup where he's got the little brother. Okay, so I'm
not getting movies confused. I wouldn't have called that goofy.
Maybe it's not goofy, but it's a little over the top.
I guess. Well, this one kind of felt a little over the top too.
Just like the first story. Maybe.
No,
I don't know.
The second one did too, because, I mean, without saying spoilers, but do you think anything the girl did with the second one wasn't over the top?
That's fair. That's fair, I guess, because yeah, she does kind of do a whole
and like her reactions
big
are like
thing.
super comical too. Like,
yeah.
Whoop.
I don't know, but I don't know. You're probably right. I'm probably wrong. I don't. To me, it's just like this one felt more serious. Maybe it's just because it's more emotionally driven. than Tears Go By?
Well, yes, I will agree with that. It is definitely more emotionally driven. I think the difference is this one is more emotionally driven, whereas As Tears Go By was meant to be more dramatic.
And sexual.
That is true. That is also true.
Maybe it is supposed to be more dramatic because of the
Gangster aspect.
yeah, the gangster aspect.
So I do think they were both serious, but they both had a goofy nature, and like they felt akin to each other.
Yeah, like you know, Wes Anderson is a director, or Tarantino is a director that you could put on their movie and you could be like, that's Tarantino, that's Wes Anderson. Yeah, and I kind of feel like, I mean, it probably helps that we watch these pretty close together, but I kind of feel like if you would put on As Tears Go By and then Chungking Express, I would go, that's the same director. Because it has a lot of that. There's like certain things he's doing, like the choppy frame rate, the accented of like neon colors, the kind of heavier saturation. And then on top of that, it's
like a much cleaner version, a grown-up version of the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's kind of exploring human emotion in a way, differently. But there's like something to the tone or the atmosphere of those two movies, where you can definitely tell it's kind of the same artistic vision in a way. And I don't know, I really love this one. I thought this was sweet. I was kind of worried after Days of Being Wild that I was going to hate a lot more of this set. Which we still got 3-4 more to go, so it's hard to tell.
And bonus, this played all the way through, no problems.
Yes, and I did contact Criterion. They are sending disc replacement. They're actually sending disc replacement for almost the entire set, just out of don't email us again kind of thing. I think they didn't want to ship more. Yeah, apparently it's a well enough known issue that if you reach out to Criterion, they'll send you some replacement discs. So thank you, Criterion, for that. You're awesome.
Sponsor us.
Yeah. Please. I would love to do the Criterion Closet. I would make them go bankrupt if I got to do the Criterion Closet.
Don't say that if you want a sponsorship.
Oh, they got enough money. I wouldn't even be able to talk in that. I would just be like, oh, just grabbing all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I also like in this movie, Chungking Express. There's a lot of, when it's not California Dreaming, there's a lot of almost like noirish jazz, like brass score throughout the movie.
Yes, I kept trying to put my finger on how you would describe that music. That's exactly how you would describe it. It was very sleazy drama, but in the best way.
Yeah, I loved it. If we're gonna do a ranking, because we're 3 movies in now, my number 3 so far.
Rate it first.
Okay. Chungking Express, I give a 9 out of 10 to.
Oh, I would give an 8.
An 8? All right. Yeah, I'm giving it a 9. I loved it a lot. My only real criticism would be the hang up between the tonal shift, which isn't that big of a deal because I think both stories are great. But yeah, that would be kind of my hang up.
My only criticism is you could have added a half an hour and I would have happily watched it just to know what's going down with the drug ring. Yeah,
that would have been kind of cool. I guess maybe it's you don't get an ending because he never re-saw her again. That'd be my guess. But yeah, I'd give it 9 out of 10. It'd be my number 1 so far. It'd be Chungking Express. I feel like we're going to be the same.
Oh, 100%.
As Tears Go By and Days of Being Wild.
Same.
All right, so we got some toxic waste.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. I have some in my pocket.
Grab the...
other side of my pocket.
Grab the 3-pack box thing.
Oh, but it's so far away. Oh, now my seat's all messed up. I was sitting on my leg. Now I'm not.
Oh, well. Toxic waste.
Sponsor us.
I'll take any sponsorship at this point. I just don't.
I'll keep begging until someone sponsors.
I don't want to go back to work.
Work, sponsor us.
They kind of do.
Technically. Oh, this is the black cherry today. I can't get this one.
Got one. Oh, I just clocked our poor puppers. Hey, you want to say something?
Ready?
All right.
Chink.
I dropped it.
Oh no. I'm going
I caught
alone. Mm-mm.
Pretty bad.
Right at the gate. This is a good flavor.
You go flavor.
I think it's sour, but it's really gross. I'm so excited for this one.
This has been the grossest flavor wise. I don't think it's as sour as what was the one we did last time?
Watermelon?
No, watermelon I think was first, or was that apple?
Apple was first.
Does it not say what flavors there are?
Yeah, the sour went away really fast, but this flavor is
here.
gross.
I don't think this was as sour as the watermelon, but this flavor is really gross.
0 out of 10 for black cherry toxic waste.
Yeah, don't like it. I like the apple one a lot. But next is Fallen Angels.
Yes.
So we're gonna jump into Fallen Angels next. Come on.
Are the leaves are brown?